Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Purple Daily on Draft. Every Monday right here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel with Tyler Fornes, Thor Nystrom, a couple draft-loving football nerds who love to break down the draft. 365 days a year, almost 52 weeks a year, at least on this podcast. And we like to bring you some draft-eccentric takes right here on Purple Daily. Daily Vikings entertainment, where we just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die. And finally, the pads are basically on. First day of practice actually is this afternoon. We're recording this on Monday at about 1 o'clock, but first day of pads. The pads are on, boys. Football is back. No more off-season lists. No more random things to come up with. Just meat and potatoes football. We did a 53-man roster projection. Judd gave his entire 53-man roster projection, which he's going to tweak, I guess, every other week or so during training camp to see who gets on it, who gets off it. I might even throw you guys some names on that list later on in this episode. But let's start here. Let's just start with the main talker. So Danielle Hunter, get a little Sunday morning news dump. I love when my phone starts buzzing when I should be sleeping in at about 7:30, 8 o'clock, being buzz, 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 because Danielle Hunter ends up getting a new contract, a one-year deal, basically, that sets him up to be a free agent next March. Let's just start here. So number one, I think we all are in unison that it's a good thing Danielle Hunter is back. But two, with him entering a walk year, Thor, is this still put a high priority at finding an edge or finding an elite pass rusher early in the draft for next year?
Higher, yeah, because, I mean, it seems like what this is sort of facilitating is for Danielle to walk out the door next offseason, right? Like, because a part of that contract was that they can't tag him. So, I mean, like, it seems like basically what's happening is like, it's like this is sort of not a favor, but it's sort of like or not a stopgap, but it's like, what do you call it? Resolution. But, you make Danielle happy and then especially make Brian Flores happy. Because if, like overnight, it was like, oh, the Danielle Hunter's on the block. And it was like, all the ESPN reporters were reporting that and all that. And then you just had that thought of like, oh, man, if they trade Danielle Hunter, how's Brian Flores going to feel when he took over the stinkiest defense in the NFL? And now they're going to trade Danielle Hunter right before the season starts. Like, that would have been tough. So now Flores gets Hunter back, which is good for him. They're going to play out the season, but without having the ability to tag him, and Hunter has been discontented with his contract now for multiple years. So you would figure that he's not going to give the Vikings a discount when his contract runs out. So the Vikings are going to be, they're going to be in the same position as everyone else, where it's just going to be like a bidding thing. And Kwesi's showing that he doesn't like to give out long-term contracts. I think Fornes, didn't you tweet out? I think I'd seen this today or yesterday. Kwesi hasn't given out one true contract extension yet. He's clearly showing a propensity to not want to tie up future money.
So he's given out 2 contract extensions, and one of them was Kirk Cousins with the 1 extra year. The other was CJ Ham, it feels like a dummy extension, and I don't consider it like a true contract.
Both those were kind of, I mean, technically the Cousins one was, but they're not like, hey, I'm committing to you on this long-term basis. They can get out of the CJ Ham one relatively easily. The Cousins, he's probably gone after 2023, barring something crazy happening. And it's interesting to see how, like, because the one thing with analytics, and that's kind of how Kwesi's being identified here as the analytics general manager. What a lot of people identify is it's Pro Football Focus, it's Football Outsiders, great metrics, but analytics is a lot deeper than that. There are a lot more variables and equations that teams look at in-house. And I think that's important to understand when we're having these conversations about how management views a player or a situation, because it's not always a one-to-one, oh, their PFF grade is great, so we're going to bring them in or keep them. It's not always what you see. It's what they have that you don't see. And I'm very intrigued to see how the data that they have that we don't necessarily know about with Danielle Hunter equates to not giving him that contract extension. Now, it doesn't mean he wasn't offered one. It doesn't mean that Hunter doesn't want one either. He wants to get paid. He's made that relatively clear. He wants to be paid a lot closer to what he's worth. Half that's his own fault, and I think he understands that. But at the end of the day, he's still trying to maximize his value, which I completely respect. But
maybe it's one of those things like we had the Kirk Cousins talks where Cousins camp wanted guarantees through 2025. The Vikings were only willing to guarantee one extra season, and they couldn't agree to it. It could be something that simple. And maybe when they get back to the table here later on during training camp or before free agency in March, they have those conversations again and they're able to come to a resolution. To me, this is a good faith deposit by Vikings management. Say, hey, we understand this wasn't our contract that we signed. This was something that was done by the old regime. We did right by you last year by giving you that $18 million bonus by pushing the money forward. We're going to do right by you again by giving you the raise that you deserve. And we hope by doing these things that when you come to the negotiating table next year, you are going to be more willing to do right by us and we can come to a fair resolution for both parties. That's what I think this is.
I'll still say I think he's gone after this season. And I think what this does is it sets the trade value for him potentially at the deadline if things go south for the Vikings this year. That's not what they're hoping for. I mean, obviously they did sign him, but like, you know what you're going to get if he walks. You're going to get the comp pick at the end of the third round. So you now know what you're asking for. It's a minimum of a third round pick if you get to the deadline and you're, 3 games under 500, right? Like that's the bare minimum, right? Because then you're picking a little bit ahead of what the comp pick would be if he walks out the door, and you have to wait on the comp picks, whatnot. Of course, you prefer a second if you can get it, but like, of course, you're only talking about a rental player at that point that then the team that you're trading him to, they would have a little bit more negotiating power as well. So you get a little bit more juice for, but that's how they be guaranteed with him or whatever. So, yeah, but yeah, I just don't know because of the way that the coach, the two sides, the consternation there and everything else, and the way that Kwesi has run this roster and the cap issues that they've had. For me, this is sort of setting up like this is a last year thing, and then Danielle's elsewhere next season.
Let me ask this. Did the Vikings make a mistake maybe early on in this offseason not trading Danielle Hunter? Or are you guys okay with the fact that, hey, we're basically entering a walk year now and you paid him and he's happy in the short term? Flores is going to be happy in the short term, but he's also probably going to bolt for a new gig this time next year. Do you have buyer's remorse, and should the Vikings have actually traded Danielle Hunter earlier in this offseason to try to recoup some value immediately?
I don't believe we have enough information to answer that question. Right yeah, because we don't know what they were offered, and presumably if they had been offered enough, they would have accepted the trade. And we know that at least Kwesi was listening because some of those reports came out. Right. So like, I just assumed that Kwesi did listen and he got lowballed. We don't know what he got offered, but maybe, was it third round pick or maybe even like lower teams just trying to lowball him, whatever. I would guess that if the Vikings had gotten offered a first round pick for Danielle Hunter wouldn't be on the roster right now. So I think that's what happened.
That's exactly it. We don't have enough information to be able to say, oh, they should have traded him, or, oh, they shouldn't have traded him, because we don't know what the offers were. If the offer was high enough, let's use this as a comparison point. At the trade deadline, it was either last year or the year before, the Los Angeles Rams offered the Carolina Panthers 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. If they were offered that deal and they said no, Kwesi deserves to be criticized greatly for it, because you take that deal. You have a 28-year-old edge rusher who's been in the NFL for 9 years, who has a couple major injuries, one of them being a neck. Neck injuries are very fickle. Declan, you and I are pro wrestling fans. Almost every pro wrestler has a neck injury, and they can be incredibly fickle once you have one, and even before you have a major surgery. So understanding that context, if you get offered a big compensation package, you take it. But we have genuinely no idea what teams are offering. I had heard some rumblings of maybe like a 3 and a 4. I have no idea how true that is. And if you said no to that, you should, because he's worth a lot more than a 3 and a 4. So there's too many variables. I keep using this reference. I used it last week with you and Judd, Declan. It's the math problem in Good Will Hunting. There's too many holes that we need to fill to really be able to answer the problem.
All right. Any other Danielle Hunter or edge rusher takes here before we move on to some training camp notes? You got anything else in your guys' bag, or anything on that front before we go to the next topic?
Just there's interesting edge rushers in the next class. There always
Nice.
is, but yeah, I mean, like I think that there will be plenty of options to choose from there. But we've also tossed out a whole bunch of other positions that the Vikings theoretically could use in the next class as well. So something else to keep in mind if you open, I mean, if Hunter's out the door, you for sure need that, and you're also hoping that Davenport's play jumps up. But keep in mind, you only gave him a 1-year deal. You could franchise Davenport if Davenport, like, you know, if it proves that you know he sort of goes back to where he was a couple years ago and he's really good and you want to keep him, you can franchise him. But you know, if Hunter leaves, you still have a gaping hole on the other side. But yeah, you have these holes elsewhere too. But there are some good edge rushing prospects coming for sure.
The Vikings are keeping their options open with, in my opinion, with the idea of keeping both Hunter and Davenport. But if they both fall off a cliff or for whatever reason, they can start over at the position, and you can argue whether that's a good or a bad strategy. But with the question marks surrounding both of them, with both injuries and long-term consistency, you can argue that it's an incredibly smart play by Kwesi.
Let's go to some training camp stuff here. So actually, I want to start at the running back position. So Judd, in just the first few days, and again, the pads come on officially today. We'll get more and more notes and nuggets here on Purple Daily, so stay tuned for that on training camp observations. But boys, Judd gave a mock 1.0 of Vikings 53-man roster projections, and he has the Vikings keeping 4 running backs for next year. CJ Ham, by the way, falls into the running back category, even though he's more like a fullback, H-back. He's just putting him in there for simplicity reasons. He has Madison, Chandler, Wongwu, CJ Ham, with Dwayne McBride on the bubble. Thor, you are the biggest Dwayne McBride guy there is. There is still plenty of time for him to get up here.
Agree to disagree.
How upset will you be if Dwayne McBride's not on this 53-man roster?
The only thing I'll be upset about is Judd being wrong. Judd knows I love him. So it'll bring me no joy. But I think Dwayne McBride is making this roster as long as he is physically right, you know, and you know, we talked about the hamstring and different stuff over the offseason. But yeah, I mean, the Vikings running back room, it's not strong enough to take the chance to try to sneak a kid that talented through waivers, whether he gets poached by another team or whether somehow they sneak him through and they're able to get him to the practice squad. Well, then another team can just pick him off there. I just, like, your running back room's that bad. You can run into one here with McBride, and potentially that's a kid that can take a lion's share of your early down touches for multiple years. So for me, that's it. He's a prime development guy, and I just wouldn't take the risk of doing that.
So I'm going to layer my response in 2 ways. One, I agree with Thor. You don't let him try to sneak through. But I also agree with Judd. I think it's completely fair to say he's on the bubble, and we're projecting. They're looking at what he's doing in practice, and I'll be at practice 4 days over the next week to try and get a real sense of where McBride is, especially in the passing game. But because he came in with so many different questions where we just don't know what he is and how he's going to be able to project in some of those areas, because what he's good at, that translates immediately. And you know that you can count on him to be a first and second down runner right away. He could start and you wouldn't think twice about it. It's not about what he can do. It's about the question marks of, we don't know if he can do this. And that's all the passing game stuff. And because of what this committee is, I don't know if you're going to want a guy who's just going to be a first and second down smasher when you have that in Madison, but Madison has that excellent third down utility. And I think when it comes to just roster construction, having him on the bubble makes sense. I would keep him. I've been projecting him to stay throughout all of my exercises where I've been doing them all off season. But I get where Judd is coming from, because until you answer some of those questions with how that running back room is currently constructed, it's fair to say he is firmly on the bubble. I just hope that they take him off and keep him.
We've talked about this a little bit on the offensive line front, but it looks like the Vikings will be obviously running back their offensive line. That was their 5 guys from last year. Even the depth guys, you know, it mostly looks like to be the same type of depth dudes that are behind them, and Schlottman and obviously Oli Udo. Are you guys good with this? Do you want to see maybe another ad here as roster cuts happen? Are you guys good with the starting 5 that they have now and also the depth pieces behind them?
I love the starting five. I would have liked and I talked about this in the lead up to the draft. I would have liked for them to get another developmental guy. But I also talked about this in the lead up to the draft and after the draft, the context of the situation that Kwesi was in, being with the limited amount of picks that he had, right? Like, I mean, with the Hawkinson trade and then, of course, finishing in first place, you're picking later, then you don't have the second round pick. And so they just didn't have as many picks. And because of that, and then they also had, obviously, you have a whole bunch of holes on defense. You had the gaping hole at wide receiver too, et cetera, et cetera. And then you had the limited amount of picks. And then and I don't disagree with the decision to stay put in that would have been the most logical place where you trade down to multiply your amount of picks, where potentially then you could address more of these positions. But they were in this weird contextual spot in the first round where there was 4 clear top consensus receivers and then a big drop on everybody's board. In the media, in the NFL, that was just the take. And so if the Vikings weren't going to take one of those 4 receivers, they had to throw a dart. And they didn't have a second round pick to do it on one of the second round receivers. Of course, they could have traded down, but again, you're going to be taking a chance on one of those guys, whatever. So I don't begrudge them for staying put and taking Addison, but that was the circumstances of why they didn't end up taking one of sort of those developmental guys. But yeah, I mean, I would have liked that if they were able to, but I get why it didn't happen.
I'm fine with running it back. I really am. Continuity is one of the biggest things with offensive line play, and you talk to anybody, and I guarantee you go right to Alex Boone, he's going to tell you the exact same thing. You need continuity. You need to be able to know what the guy next to you is going to be doing. You need to be able to trust what they're going to do. And plus, when you learn the weaknesses, you can understand that and then overcompensate for and to help them before getting out into your responsibility. Maybe it's a guy like Darisaw getting a hand on the inside shoulder of that 3 technique before bouncing out. And because of his athletic ability, he can get out there and stop the edge rusher and get that chip. And those little things and nuances matter so much when it comes to interior offensive line play. I am fine with running it back, especially considering the context of what last year was. I think the insane number of pressures garnered by both Ed Ingram and Ezra Cleveland, I think those were amplified a little too much just based on how we were running the offense and the lack of the running game. And I think the running game itself is going to fix a lot of those pressure woes because they're not going to feel as, for lack of a better term, pressured in those situations because they're going to have the running game to be able to back them up. And that's why, even though running isn't nearly as proficient as passing the football, it makes so much of a difference in game planning in helping your team be able to attack defenses because they know they're not going to just be able to expect, hey, we're just going to throw it to Jefferson. We're just going to throw it to Hawkinson. Well, play action means more when you can run the ball, even though it works without being able to run the ball. And being able to attack those weak boxes with 6, 8, 10-yard runs is going to make a massive difference on pass protection as well, because defensive linemen aren't going to be able to just go upfield. They're going to have to take a split second and watch to see where the ball goes before really getting into their pass rush. Split seconds matter in the NFL, especially when it comes to rushing the passer. I think continuity is great. It'd be nice if you had an improvement. Eclair just kind of bounced up a little bit. She saw Mr. Felix, but yeah, continuity is good.
Love it.
Felix would not leave me alone there. It's like, get back.
Love that. Hey, on the defensive side, guy who flashed big time on, I believe, the Saturday practice was Lewis Cine. He made a humongous interception. It just finally felt like, there's a noticeable play by a first-round pick who isn't a bust yet, but is certainly having his tough time there as Thor even gets Felix more from left to right. You're like Lewis Cine. You're just bouncing all around. You're intercepting cats.
Felix is like Louis Cine. Yeah,
yeah.
He needs more experience. He needs to learn sort of how the game flow is going. Sometimes makes mistakes. Here he goes again. Yeah,
you're gonna trade back, and then you're gonna grab Felix here.
Felix might get traded if he keeps putting these performances on. This is not a great showing by Felix today.
I'll just bring Odie over and let him just run around and get Felix.
Oh yeah.
Cats love dogs too, right?
Felix is afraid of Odie, but we're working on it for sure.
What do we make, though, of Lewis Cine's kind of big practice there? It seems like he has I mean, because the microscope's under him so much with him being a first-round pick, he has a lot to prove. He might have the most to prove at training camp for the Vikings this year in general. What do you guys make of at least a strong showing at one practice for the former first-round pick of the Vikings?
Well, it's funny when you see those flash highlights of Louis Cine, it's always the same thing, right? It's like when he's facing the quarterback and he sees it early, and then he just flies there, right? And he gets there in a flash. Right. And then that's when he can jump in front of the passes, or that's when he can disrupt the catch point, or in college, that's when we've seen him run down the alley and stuff like that. It's when he has that the panoramic view of the entire field. And then from there, he can diagnose the thing and he triggers immediately. He's a fearless downhill player, accelerates super quick, and then he's at the doorstep. And then that's when he creates havoc. The thing that we've talked about is you'd like to see him getting more live reps because he needs to fine tune the instincts of we don't want to make in the false steps. We don't want to make in the misreads, whatnot. But when it's on and he reads it correctly, triggers in the correct direction, whatnot, that's when you see these flash plays. It's not a surprise at all. His tape at Georgia, especially that last season, is littered with those plays. So it's not a surprise at all. That stuff's coming out. We just have to weed out the other stuff when he's misreading a play, whatnot. And hopefully as it goes on, the coach are going to see more and more of that in practice and only the flash plays.
Quick trigger downfield. That interception that was floating all around Twitter on Saturday showed his quick trigger. And when you have guys like that, Brian Flores is going to be able to do a lot more disguising with coverages. That's where elite athleticism comes in, because you have to be able to have the mindset and the brain to be able to read and react. And that reaction time needs to be quick, which Cine expressed a lot in college. His read and react time was fantastic. And then that athleticism paired with it, that's when he was able to make a lot of those special plays because he has that 4.37 speed and he's got that quick get off. Something we talked about, with Kwesi Adolfo says he loves that 10-yard split. That quickness makes a big difference.
Cine has stupid explosion in the lower half. His vertical is like 42 inches. Something like that. Yeah, just stupid explosive.
Yeah, and when you have that kind of explosiveness, that's when you can do those disguising of coverage. Because you saw Booth bail out. It looked like it was cover 3. And then Cine basically just filled that hook zone. And that's where he was able to get that interception. Didn't even look like a bad play from Rieger. Rieger went and attacked the football. Cine just beat him to it. And you love to be able to see that, and utilizing him in those areas where he can just read, react, and explode with that quick trigger. That's when you're going to get the most success out of him. And that's how you're going to be able to build up that confidence to be able to do more with him. Because he's not a traditional center fielder, but man, can he make a lot of plays in like that intermediate area, which is where you need to be great to win in the NFL.
Yeah, what you're trying to I agree with that, but he is going to be a center fielder, right? Because
here's my thing though, will he be? Like,
I think so.
Profile to be as far as the athleticism,
yeah.
But is he going to be a center fielder, or is Flores gonna use him sometimes in center fielder? Because to me, when I think center fielder, Thor, I think Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas was a center fielder, and I think Cine's going to be utilized like Harrison Smith. They're going to move him all over, and they're going to get him to just be an explosive projectile missile.
I could see him being moved up towards the box sometimes, but like I can't see him being moved like more like in more roles than that. Like you can't put him in the slot. He will get abused in coverage in the slot or different stuff like that. So like his roles can't be delineated more than that. He needs to have it in front of him. You can, like I said, you can play him as sort of like an extra linebacker by like inching him up there. And I think we talked about this in a previous episode about how the one part of his game that I think is dormant, that I think the Vikings can squeeze value out of that Georgia never did, is pass rushing. I think that kid could be an awesome pass rusher, and Georgia just never did it because they didn't have to. But like, I also could see the thing of like, you talk about like the disguising, the cover, different stuff like that. If they start, using him closer to the box situationally, you could start disguising some of that and then start, sending them off the edge, different stuff like that. I could see that sort of stuff, but like his game plays best when he's playing deep and then he can read the whole field, then triggered downhill. Where I agree with you is he's absolutely not a traditional player in that vein, right? Like he's more of like a hybrid where he plays the game like a strong safety with a baseball bat, but then like the other stuff, it's like the free safety, like that's the alignment he plays in. He's looking to get to a lot of catch points and different stuff like that. He likes to play very deep. And so if everything hits for him, he's sort of this two-way safety who is this hybrid. And obviously that was the potential that they were shooting the moon on. If he doesn't hit, he's these disparate traits and the instincts never got there to sort of wrap them all together.
Last thing from training camp that I want to get going here. Jaren Hall propaganda.
Oh, boy.
Jaren Hall had a pretty solid couple practices there, too. Now, Judd said he struggled over the weekend.
For this part and let Forno go.
So we saw Jekyll and Hyde. We saw some impressive throws. He caught the eye early on, but then over the weekend, there was also some questionable things there. What did we make of the latest Jaren Hall propaganda update? Tyler, excuse me. I know Thor's going to be muted here. Tyler, what'd you make of an up and down, I guess, week of practice for the rookie quarterback?
Yeah, that's good. I want him to show struggles. I don't want him to be flawless because this is where you're going to learn. This is where you're going to have the opportunity to grow. And that first interception to Mekhi Blackman, he had the guy open. He sailed it about 3 feet high, like little things. And that's where the little nuance, that's where Kevin O'Connell could come and be like, hey, you had the guy open. You had the right read. Now you just need to clean up a little bit and be able to do this, that, and you'll be able to hit that throw. I did not see the other interception where Judd had told me that Najee Thompson intercepted him. I don't know what that one looked like, but he's also hitting really nice throws. And I think you want to be able to see more of that. You want to see him hit those nice throws. And when he does make a mistake, how is he reacting? Is he going and receiving coaching? Is he accepting it? And then how is he responding from that? Those are the things I really want to see. Heck, I tweeted earlier today. I've seen a bunch of passing throws from Atlanta Falcons camp. I think all of them have been bad throws, and I think all of them came from Desmond Ridder. Like, it's training camp's the time to struggle, but it's how you're responding to it. And Hall doesn't have any pressure on him right now because he is going to be a backup. So how's he going to continue to grow throughout this process? We're only 4 practices in right now, and the 5th one, as we're recording, this is going to start in about 45 minutes. Let's see how he continues to grow and progress. Like, he's still 5th round pick, but I'm still incredibly high in him considering that draft capital. I like that he's at least throwing some nice balls.
Anything to add there? Other resident Jaren Hall fan, Thor, you got any other things you want to add there?
Yeah, I don't put too much stock into, one day it's like, oh, he had a great practice day. The next day it's like, oh, he struggled. I don't put too much stock into it. I more or less agree with what Forno said. Like, we know he's not going to play this year. He's not ready to play this year. Forno being a big fan of his and me not being the biggest fan of his, we would agree on that point. This coming, and I think we would also agree on this point. Like, this year, you want, like, the whole goal with the Jaren Hall thing is he has mechanical things that they need to work on. So, coming in his first week, 2 weeks, month with the team, like, that's what they're working on right now. Yeah. So it's like, this isn't the finished product. Even next year in camp, it's not going to be the finished product. So, like, of course, there's going to be days like these, right? Like, I mean, there are going to be days in camp where, like, he's, like he's on a heater, right? Like, and he's going to look good where it's just clicking. And then there's going to be other days because of his mechanics and the accuracy gets particularly errant where he looks terrible. And the other thing is some of the decision-making things that we talked about in college. I think that's also something that O'Connell can help him with, but that's going to be a process too. And I don't think that's something that's just solved in camp. That's something where they're on, like, the flight to, New York or whatever for a game. And, like, O'Connell's like, hey, Jaren, like, the veterans are sleeping in the back of the plane. Hey, Jaren, no one's sitting by me. Come on up here. I want to show you something on the iPad. Like, just moments like that and stuff like that. Like, that stuff, it's just going to be ongoing. All you want Hall to do, during this time is just not fall on his face, show up every day, keep getting better and better. And like Forno said, just take to the coaching. He's a veteran kid that we know is a good kid that we know takes to coaching. Like all of his coaches at BYU loved him. So we're not concerned about that. Mature kid, whatnot. So yeah, just stay on the path and just keep showing progress.
All right, boys, do you want to get to these Blesto grades? And if you want to get to them, can you also explain to the audience what the Blesto grades are?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, Forno and I, we were going to do a segment where I toss a guy that maybe I shouldn't say overrated, underrated, but a guy where I'll frame it this way, where I was surprised at a position group where the Blesto had the guy ranked or had a grade on him that took me aback as being higher, and then a grade where I was surprised that it was lower, and then just get Forno's reaction. The NFL gets grades from two different places before the season. It's Blesto, and then the other one's an acronym that I always forget. It starts with N. Forno, do you remember the other one, what the acronym is?
No, but I know who you're talking about. I just don't remember the acronym.
I always forget the acronym. But anyway, yeah, so I have the Blesto grades. We're working on getting the other one, but they're always released in the summer before the season starts. And it's not something that like when you get, you're always going to agree with. A couple of these names I'll toss out, people at home, they might vehemently disagree with these. I can tell you, not all the football people agree with these either. I've some of these ones that surprise me. I've reached out to different people around football to ask them their opinion, and some people have sent back very how do I put it? They've had very hard opinions about it and Blesto in general. It just it basically. Use it as a guideline is what most people do of just like, this is the group of people that the NFL is looking at, and you use it as sort of a guideline. And you also
current stock, right? Not projected.
Yeah. Basically where they're looking at them for like right now. Right. And then of course people can go up and down, but it's sort of just interesting is sort of just right now, this is sort of where they see it. So starting with the quarterbacks, Forno, I wanted to get your take on these guys. Now, this is one that I sent a text out about because this was a guy that I thought that I was more bullish on this quarterback than most. But his grade came back and was very surprising to me. They have him as a second round grade, number 2 on the list, behind only Bo Nix. And one other thing I didn't say, Forno mentioned it in a previous episode. Blesto is only grading senior draft eligible players. Okay. So you won't see Caleb Williams on here. You will not see Drake May on here. Just the seniors, at every position. Yeah. But Forno, Devin Leary of Kentucky, number 2 senior quarterback on the Blesto quarterback rankings. The only other guy outside of Bo Nix with a round 2 grade. They list him as his most recent measurement, 6'1", 217. Does that surprise you? Do you think that's fair? Or what do you think about that one?
It doesn't surprise me considering how many old heads are still in NFL front offices. I wouldn't touch him in day 2 at this point. He's coming off a torn right pectoral muscle. I didn't think he was all that impressive to begin with. And we talked about this on a previous episode. He's fine. I don't think he's great. I think he's like discount Will Levis, where Levis at least gives you some of that like high end arm talent, which is why he got, while I think it's unfair, he got some comparisons to Josh Allen because his arm can do incredible things, but he's got so many other issues that he's got to work through. I just think Leary is an average-ish arm. He's an average athlete, and I don't think he has that type of upside. But we've also seen teams be willing to value that incredibly high, that whether fair or unfair, that Kirk Cousins archetype. Kenny Pickett went in round 1 in 2022. There is nothing great about Kenny Pickett. He's average, and his ceiling is like an average Kirk Cousins. That's not somebody I want to take in round 1. And I think there are so many better players than Devin Leary that are on this list. I'm surprised considering how I view him. but I'm also not surprised considering how a lot of NFL personnel will view him either.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, yeah, not the biggest kid, but his size doesn't negate him. And you're right, like he's not a super athlete. He's an okay athlete. He's not terrible. Like he can scramble a little bit, but he's not a plus athlete. He ain't gonna steal yards outside of the pocket too often, but he is smart. You know, and he does have accuracy for sure. Last year was hurt. Well, his stock was hurt because he was hurt literally. Missed the end of last season, and then now he transfers out of NC State. He's going to Kentucky. It's interesting. Kentucky brings back Liam Cohen, who last year spent the season as the Rams offensive coordinator. The year before that, Liam Cohen was the coordinator at Kentucky. That was Will Levis's only good season in college. So then Cohen goes to the Rams for a season. Now he's back. Interesting seeing him working with Leary here. If he can turn Leary around for the season, maybe then like I could see Leary potentially competing for like round 3. The round 2 thing just seemed crazy bullish to me because even as a guy, like I said, likes Leary, I just don't see how the ceiling gets there because I'm with you. The arm for me isn't good enough with the kind of athlete that you're talking about. He would have to be like a super brain with super accuracy to sort of get up there. We'll have to see, but I wasn't quite seeing that one. Going to the other end of the spectrum, Forno, on a quarterback that surprised me. I want to get your take on this one. Now, other guys have had this guy higher, and I think that's more justified, but I've seen some other guys in some of these too early mocks go way too far with this, where I disagreed with their takes, but I feel that Blesto went too far the other way. So I would definitely be in the middle, but I'm curious to see where you are, because this is a very fun prospect, but he has a wonky eval for reasons that I'm sure you'll get into when you respond. Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. Blesto has a 6th round grade on him heading into the season, even though last year he led the nation in passing yards by a mile. He threw for like, what was it, 4,700 passing yards last season.
And you got Odunze and McMillan coming back. That offense is just going to be nasty.
And his latest measurements, 6'2.5", 221. And then I think over his most recent testing ran a 4.7 flat. So not a bad athlete either. And the other thing about Penix, for a guy who's just a little bit under 6'3", that guy's got an NFL gun.
Oh yeah. So I think it's twofold here. One, as dumb as it sounds, he's a lefty.
I love lefties.
I do too. But there's only like one truly great left-handed quarterback in NFL history, and that was Steve Young.
Tim Tebow? Oh, sorry.
Like that?
I hate you. But you can make arguments for Mike Vick. You can make one for Boomer Esiason. But at the end of the day, the only one that's been truly great was Steve Young. And I think there is some sort of, like, for lack of a better term, a prejudice against left-handed quarterbacks just because there's so many little nuances. And I don't even think prejudice is the right word. It's just, it's viewed as a detriment. And I think that plays into it. But the big thing that plays into it, which is why when I gave him an eval, I said, based on the film, he's a 2nd round grade, but based on what his injuries and medicals look like, he could be not even worth signing as a UDFA. He has multiple torn ACLs that have ended seasons. He had a left shoulder surgery, which matters because he's left-handed, that ended his season at Indiana. I think that one was 2020, the COVID year. He's played for Kalen DeBoer when DeBoer was the OC at Indiana. So he came in and already knew the offense and was comfortable running it. But he went from a guy who was a great runner and scrambler to pocket passer. I think he had like 31 rushing yards, and that includes sacks. So you have to contextualize that a little bit. But I don't have a problem with the 6th round grade considering the medicals. If you're going off film and you put him in the 6th round, dog, I've got questions for you, because this dude can sling it. If you have a chance, you go to YouTube, Michael Penix versus Oregon. He's got a hole shot where he hits the cover 2. So you got the corner lets the receiver pass and then the safety takes him. There's that hole. And that was the whole of the entire Tampa 2 defense. That's why that scheme, whatchamacallit, that's why it wasn't as successful as it could have been, because everybody just kept hitting corners. Well, he hits that hole shot with that laser, and the guy turns around and takes it for 70. Like, he can do some crazy stuff, but it's the injuries. The injuries are going to hurt him if they come back with any kind of long-term. Multiple torn ACLs. What's the cartilage look like at that knee? Is it degenerative? Like, these are the questions you're going to be asking. And I don't have any kind of intel to know whether he's going to be good or not in that area.
Also, don't sleep on my left-handed quarterback, Kellen Moore. Also, Kellen Moore is a lefty too.
Yeah.
Look, the guy won 50 games as a starter at Boise State, but his arm was worse than Devin Leary's.
I think for Penix, this goes without saying, but he needs to get through another season at Washington this coming season, totally healthy. He obviously has to have a great season again. Last year,
I think he's going to be 25 by the time the draft comes around. That's also a problem, and especially compiling those injuries.
Sure, but you compare him to a guy like Hendon Hooker, who was 26 and coming off the ACL. If Penix has an awesome season and is not injured, I definitely prefer him to Hendon Hooker. So for me, if Penix has the bonanza of a season and he's healthy, or he doesn't get injured, and then like my medical team more or less signs off on it, like you're not going to get like the full sign off on it, right? Because like he did have 4 straight season-ending injuries, but like if they're more or less like like it's not elevated beyond what yes, he had those injuries, but like whatever. I think I could get myself to a round 2 on Penix. Like, he's good. He's athletic. He's not a super freak athlete, but he's athletic enough. He has that big league arm. And the other thing I really like about him, I probably fetishize this too much with quarterbacks, but it's never led me astray. I hate quarterbacks who suck under pressure, like who are really, really good in clean pockets and by extension against poor opponents, like that can't generate pressure. And then like the opposite when it goes the other way. Penix is really good under pressure. He's good in clean pockets for sure. But he's good under pressure. And he is also fabulous at avoiding sacks and coming up with answers in those situations. You're sort of manufacturing it. So yes, I mean, he plays for a really good offensive coach in DeBoer, but he's not totally a creation of it. Just one random off the beaten track stat for you guys. And it's a shocking stat. Penix, he leads the nation in passing yards last year by a country mile. And yet Washington finished, I believe it was second least in the country last year in sacks allowed. And you're like, how is that possible? Well, the reason it's possible is because Michael Penix last year, PFF has a stat called pressure to sack conversion rate that they put on all the quarterbacks, basically where they're assigning blame to, to the quarterback, whatever, based on the pressures. I'm looking on my sheet here. There's Jaden Daniels, for instance, his last year was 30.8. So 30.8% of the pressures that Jaden Daniels got last year were converted into sacks. That is a bad number. Another guy who had 30.8, very much smaller sample size, was Cade McNamara. There's several guys over 20. KJ Jefferson, our boy Devin Leary, Michael Pratt. Michael Penix, his number, 3.2%. And he's also very, very good under pressure, his passing stats. And he doesn't turn the ball over either. Starts to sound like we're talking about a pretty good player here, right? The bugaboo at Indiana, it was the injuries, and then the accuracy would wildly vacillate. Folks, that accuracy started to get a lot better last year. It's still not upper echelon. Like, for instance, Drake May, 75.4% adjusted accuracy last year. Caleb Williams is 76. Bo Nix was 82.3, although that's a bit fluky because Oregon, a lot of their stuff is manufactured close to the line of scrimmage. Penix was 74.1. that doesn't sound super impressive, but earlier in his career, he was like right over 70. So that actually jumped up a bit. And Washington does, throw down the field a little bit more. If he can jump that thing up a couple more percent points this year, while keeping all the other stuff where it is, that's where I think we start talking strong day 2 prospect for Michael Penix.
Situation matters. He's the epitome of it.
Yeah. Love it, boys. Purple Daily on Draft every Monday right here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. We'll have more training camp observations for you. Next week, we'll have more Blesto grades for you. We'll kind of incorporate a bunch of different things into these episodes every Monday right here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. We'll be back next week. Hit that subscribe button for daily Vikings entertainment.